Hi, this tutorial continues on from my tutorial on part 1 of basic editing in Movie Edit Pro and covers cutting and trimming objects and editing their length. I'll also show the object trimmer. I'm going to use the term MEP rather than saying Movie Edit Pro each time. But first, make sure that you downloaded the free add-ons and updated to the latest version. Look for these under the top Help menu, Install Extra Content, and Update Online. Also, use the Help Manual. Set up your parameters for MEP under File, Settings, Program Settings. If you didn't watch the tutorial on Basic Editing Part 1, you might want to do so now because I'm going to build on what we've already done. Now, in the last tutorial, I showed you how to import only a part of a video using the range markers in the source monitor. Let's look again at what that means. Select a video clip, click on the range marker button, and the video opens in the source monitor. Go to where you want your import to start, press the left range marker. Go to where you want it to end, and press the right range marker. You can fine-tune this using the jog wheel. Wait a minute, where'd my jog wheel go to? Click on the 3 bars at the top left of the monitor and turn it on. There we go. Just make sure that the monitor window is wide enough for it to display. Continuing on, the area between the in and out markers is the part of the video that we're going to import. The parts at the beginning and at the end that we're not importing are still available. Insert or drag the clip from the monitor onto the timeline. I'm going to drag it onto track 2 near the end of the movie. Now you have to understand the nature of what we have. We inserted only a part of the video clip. If I drag the left end to the left, we can clearly see that we're not at the actual start of the clip. Same with the right end. We're not at the actual end. I'll undo those. Thus, at any time, you can adjust the start or the end, so long as there is some more material upstream or downstream in the video clip that we inserted. Remember, this trimming does not affect the source video clip. It never gets touched, but it always has to remain available. Let's take a look again at what we imported. Here we see the blue range. The in marker is at the left-hand side, and we see that our cursor happens to be there. And this point in the video clip, we can see at the very top left, is 14 seconds and 22 frames from the beginning of this clip. In the blue part, we see that the length of the range that we're importing is 8 seconds and 3 frames long, and we also see that in the top right corner of this window. And right in the middle of the window, we see the name of the clip that we're importing. If I move the playback marker to the right marker, the out point, we see at the top left that we're at 22 seconds and 26 frames from the beginning of the clip. And if I move the playback marker to the very right of this clip, we see that the length shown at the top left corner of the screen is 49 seconds and 3 frames. So we're only showing about 8 seconds out of a 49-second clip. Okay, back to our project. I'll drag this clip to the end of the first track. Let's say that the clip is still too long. I don't like the start point, and I want to cut some from the beginning of the clip. What I showed you in the previous tutorial to do this was to simply drag the bottom left or right handles up to where you want. Or you can drag the object border, which changes to a double line when the mouse goes over top of it. This is one way to adjust the start and end points. However, here are some other and better ways. I'll move the playback marker to the point where I want to cut out a piece of a clip. I can use the jog wheel or the left and right arrows, or even zoom in on the track using the buttons at the bottom of the screen. I'll select the clip. Using the scissors button or the shortcut T, the clip is cut. Now I have 2 clips. Remember what I told you? The original file is not touched. This is just an editing command in the project. I'll drag the left part that was cut down to track 2. I can extend the left end towards the left and the right end towards the right. So what I have is actually the same clip twice, but with different parts showing up. I'll undo that. right back to where we have the clip split into two. Now I'll select the left part of the clip that I want to remove and use the delete key or the garbage can button, and the object disappears and leaves a gap, and we probably don't want a gap. I can drag the right clip to the left to close up the gap, but that would be time consuming. I'll undo that. With a piece of clip to be removed selected, this time I'll hold down the Control key and press on Delete, and the object disappears and the gap is closed up. That's great. I'll undo that. We're in single object mouse mode. Remember mouse modes? What happens if we change the mouse mode to single track mode? Shortcut 8. Now press on the delete key or click on the garbage can, and the clip is gone and the right part moves to the left to close the gap. I'll undo all of that. Now that clip was at the end, so let's look at what happens to other objects if we do this somewhere else. I'll select the clip closer to the beginning. We have music on a lower track and a title that's lined up with another clip at the right. And I want to get back into mouse mode for single track. Click on the scissors, and only the object is cut because it's the one that's selected. The music object isn't cut. Now delete the cut part. Everything on track 1 moves to the left to fill the gap left by the object that was deleted, but not objects on other tracks. See the title? It's no longer at the beginning of its associated clip. This is because we're in single track mode. Undo that one. Now change to multi-track mouse mode or shortcut 7. Select the clip, click on the scissors, select the left clip, then hit delete or the garbage can, and the clip is gone and everything moves to the left, including the title and the object on track 4, which now overlaps with another object. So you have to be careful and aware as to what happens with the various mouse modes. I'll undo all of that, and I'll select single object mouse mode. What happens if we didn't select any clip? Click on a blank area to deselect the object. With the playback marker at the location to be cut, if I click on the scissors button, or shortcut T, both the video on track 1 and the music on track 4 are cut. This is a way to cut all objects at the playback marker without having to select them. I'll undo that. Now that's all very fine, but there's a much more efficient way to trim the head, that's the beginning, or the tail, the ending, of a clip. First, I'm in single mouse mode. Now I'll select the clip to be trimmed and place the playback marker at the point where I want to cut. I want to remove the first part, that is, the part to the left of the playback marker, or the head, in one step. And I want it to be gone, deleted. There are editing tools with shortcut keys to do this instead of making cuts and deletes. The scissors button has some little dots on it, so use the right mouse button to open the menu. We see some other commands, including remove start or shortcut Z or Z, remove end or shortcut U. There's also remove scene and split movie, but we're not interested in those two, only the first two. I'll use remove start or shortcut Z or Z, and the part to the left of the playback marker is deleted, but we're left with a gap. So I'll undo that one. Now I'll change to mouse mode for a track and try the remove start button again, and the clip is gone this time. And the part to the right on the track moves left to close up the gap. I'll undo that. Note that this last command, remove start, now has focus here, so pressing on the button will automatically remove the start, not cut the object, unless we change the command. I'll set the playback marker on a clip near the beginning, and I'll select the clip, and then switch to mouse mode for all tracks. Now click on remove the start, and the beginning of the clip is trimmed and deleted. The gap's closed up, and everything that was to the right of the cut point on tracks above and below moves to the left. Remember what happened on track 4 when we used the delete key in multi-track mode? The same thing happens here, and anything to the right on track 4 moves to the left. Again, beware as to what happens in using these combinations. They can save time, or they can seriously mess up your project. I'll undo that. We saw before what happens if we didn't select the clip before cutting. Now let's look at trimming without selecting a clip. We're still in mouse mode for all tracks. Deselect by clicking in a blank area, and I'll place a playback marker. Nothing is selected, and I'll click on the Remove Start button. The clip on track 4 is also split and trimmed, and everything to the right moves left. Not what we wanted in this case, but you might want to do this in another case. I'll undo all that. This time we're going to remove the tail of a clip. That's the right end. So I'll get back to single mouse mode, or shortcut 6. And I'll set the playback marker to where I want and select the clip that I want to cut. It's going to be the right hand side. Now go up onto the scissors, do a right click, and this time select Removed End. This cuts out the right hand part but leaves a gap. I'll undo that. I'll go back and select the clip. This time I'm going to select the mouse mode for all tracks, and then we'll remove the scene end again, and everything moved over to the left, closed up the gap, but we ended up with an overlap. The title moved, that's great. But this may or may not be what you want. I'll undo that. We've covered pretty much all of the combinations about cutting and trimming, so let's review. Remember to trim the source before importing. That's the easiest way. When you're going to trim something, make sure to select the object. You can zoom in on the timeline for more precision, and you can use the jog wheel or the arrow keys for very detailed precision. Click on a blank area of the screen to select no objects. You can also drag the ends of the clips to extend them. Don't forget to use the mouse modes and learn what they are. Use the scissors buttons or shortcuts, and watch out for objects moving on other tracks. Here are the shortcuts to remember. T makes a cut at the playback marker. Holding down the Control key and pressing on Delete deletes the object and closes the gap. Z or Z trims the left part of an object. U trims the right part of the object. And watch out for those mouse modes. 6 is for single object mouse mode, 7 multi-track mouse mode, and 8 for single track mouse mode. And before trimming, make sure that you check which mouse mode you're in, or you might not get what you want. So watch which mode has focus. The scissors only button, the X at the upper left of the scissors to trim the left part, or the X at the lower right of the scissors to trim the right part. Note that the trim commands are also available in the top menu under Edit, Cutting, and there we see the same commands. I just use the shortcuts instead of the buttons, but the best is to learn and to use the shortcuts. That's all there is to cutting and trimming, and you can stop watching if you want, but I'm going to go on to the object trimmer. If you really need more control over trimming, especially for making fine adjustments to the cut points and quickly going from clip to clip, Map has a tool for this. Right-click on a video or image object to bring up a menu, and we see two trimmers. The Edit Trimmer, which is for transitions and opens a special interface, and the Object Trimmer, which has a similar interface but is for trimming the ends of an object with great precision. We want the Object Trimmer, and the keyboard shortcut is Shift-N. Remember that, Shift-N. I'm going to use it a lot. I'll select the Object Trimmer, and the interface pops up on the screen. Now I'm going to go through this quickly without going into a lot of detail, and I'll leave the details up for you to discover. This is somewhat complicated to grasp at first, but can be used to great effect to fine-tune cuts. The trimmer has two screens and several buttons and some timer indicators. Look at the timeline. The clip selected, the playback markers at the beginning of the clip, and a range is indicated. This is the clip that will be modified. In the trimmer, the left window corresponds to the left end of the selected clip, and the right window, the right end of the selected clip. There's a second tab that says End Fade In. Since we don't have a fade in, the image is the same as the first clip. And there's a similar Start Fade Out for the right window. Next are Fading In and Fading Out buttons that adjust the upper fade handles of an object. Remember, we saw how to drag the upper left and right handles of an object to create a fade in or a fade out. But doing this wasn't precise. This tool is precise. Right now, both left and right are at 0, so there are no fades. Pressing on the left button under fading in does nothing because we're at 0. Pressing on the right arrow button increases the counter, and now we have a fade in. Look at the timeline. We see the left fade handle is moved to the right. Look in the left trimmer window for the first frame. Now the end fade in, and we see that they're no longer the same. This allows you to fine-tune fades and get precisely the length of fade that you want. I'll put it back to 0 by clicking on the left arrow. Now, remember when we inserted this clip, we first trimmed it by setting an in point and an out point. The central area that says Object Content allows us to move those start and end points without changing the duration. Watch the monitors as I change the counter. The image start point goes to the left, so we get a new start point. Holding down the Control and Alt keys and using the left mouse button moves the clip in 5-frame increments. Going back the other way, it moves the start point towards the right, still keeping the same duration. Nothing really visible happens on the timeline except that we see images flashing by, so we're going to have a new section of the same video clip in the same duration. Just below that, we see a counter with arrows and a timer. The timer shows the location of the beginning of the clip on the timeline. Pressing on the arrows moves the clip to the left or right on the timeline, but keeps the same duration. Note that the timer changes as the beginning of the clip is moved along the timeline. We now see on the timeline that we've created a crossfade. Of course, if we click the button the other way, it removes it and the clip moves back towards the right until a gap opens up. I'll go back and close up the gap a bit. At the bottom left and right, there are more timers, counters, and arrows. The left set of arrows moves the left end of the clip, thus increasing or decreasing the duration. Of course, the left end can only be moved up to the true beginning of the clip, thus removing the trimmed part. The same happens with the right set of arrows. They move the right end of the clip up to the true end of the clip. Now there are some particularities here depending on whether or not the adjacent clips have been trimmed. Untrimmed adjacent clips will not change in length, and moving the main clip may cause crossfades. Trimmed adjacent clips will decrease or increase in duration if they can when the main clip is adjusted. Play with these and you'll see what happens. Lastly, there's a series of buttons at the bottom. The arrow buttons at the left and to the right skip to the next and previous object and/or cut in the arranger. The arrow buttons with the scissors are for the edit trimmer, which is used for transitions. The buttons in the middle are for playing back. The first one will render and then play only the range. The next two play back the range. The first button's for every frame. It'll play every frame, if it can. Well, actually it can. And the second button will skip frames if the computer's overloaded. The rewind button allows you to move the range start. Watch the range move on the timeline in the image in the left window. Then use one of the playback buttons. Using this tool and its commands a lot is really the best way to learn, like everything else. In doing so, you'll see other particularities. A word of caution, making some of the adjustments does not cause objects on other tracks to move, so they may go out of sync and you'll have some cleaning up to do. Now let's quickly review the object editor. The top row is for adjusting the fade in and fade out. Next is the object content, moving in and out points, but keeping the same clip duration. The next one's moving the clip left or right on the timeline, still keeping the same clip duration. And the last ones are for adjusting the left or right ends of the clip, thus increasing or decreasing the duration where possible. Well, that's almost it. I've shown you the basic ways to do editing, and those are the tools that you're going to use the most for editing. The object trimmer is really a tool for doing precision work. I'm going to give you last two tricks. First one, you can turn off and on the hint display using the shortcut Control-Shift-F1. Remember that. You saw in the object trimmer that some of those hints were really big and getting in the way. The second trick, another way to move in and out points of a clip after it's been brought onto the timeline. That is, we want to move the in and out points. Remember, we slid back and forth that range on the source file. You can do that on the timeline by holding down Alt and Shift and dragging left and right with the mouse button. Watch what happens when I do this on a trimmed clip. Of course, this isn't very precise, but it can save you some effort. Well, that was a lot to grasp in one session. Don't forget to save your work. I hope that this has helped you understand cutting and trimming methods in Movie Edit Pro. Thank you for watching. Enjoy.